our bread and butter has always been artist development. And we've always had a model or like, I guess, a formula that we've gone by with each of our artists. And it's really coming down to storytelling, making sure that the artist knows what their own story is so that we can share that with the fans. And sometimes that does require some soul searching and figuring out like beyond the music, beyond the cohesive artwork, like music is simply just the platform. But with that platform, what are you going to say?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is the president of Palm Tree Records, a joint venture between Sony Music and label founder Kygo. They've been putting out a steady stream of hits from artists like Sam Felt, Thomas Jack, and of course, the label boss himself, racking up hundreds of millions of streams in the process. This is David Rishty.
Yeah, thank you. What's going on? Appreciate you having me.
My man, thank you for being here. You know, this is really cool because I'm a little bit woo-woo. I love like the law of attraction and manifestation and seeing all the synchronicities that come with that. And it was so funny how we got connected. Because I had literally just drafted up an email. One of my top artists that I want to get on is Sam Felt, because I came across a series of tweets that he had tweeted out a while back, and it was all about mindset. It was all about how to navigate the business, just like, you know, be a good person, like personal development. It was all the stuff that not a lot of people were talking about. And I was like, yeah, this guy gets it. This guy totally gets it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to find out who his managers are. I'm going to go hit these guys up. And I literally had an email drafted. I found the managers. I have an email in my drafts, and that's with like Palm Tree Management, Kygo's management company. Sam Felt's with the same team. And then literally like a couple days later, out of the blue, I get an email from you coming from Palm Tree Records. And I was like, all right.
How to share the love.
Hello, universe. Hello, universe. Like that kind of shit just happens all the time. And I love it. So I'm happy to have you here. Happy to dive in and hear about what y'all are doing over there at Palm Tree and beyond. Where I'd love to start is for you to give a little bit of a history just about your career. I saw that you actually started at Billboard. Yeah. Which is really dope. Obviously, huge power player in the industry. But like, take me to the beginning of your music industry career. Where did you start, and what were you doing over at Billboard?
Yeah, no, crazy journey to get here. Definitely an unorthodox route. So it started out. I'll take it to the very beginning. I was a music blogger. So in college, I was working for EDM tunes, Fists in the Air, This Song is Sick, all these different types of music blogs. And I just thought it was so cool that I could share my tastes with other people and simply just have a platform to share it on, especially on a platform that I really respected. And from there, like really just became internet friends with a lot of different bloggers. I went to college at NYU. So a lot of people were going to Webster Hall on the weekend. So I could like meet them face to face, meet the artists, meet the managers. And just like, that was my first taste of just getting into the scene, what people were like, what the energy was like. Yeah, I was just so enthralled by it. I mean, I studied film and TV. Like that's what I have a degree in. I have zero formal education in the music business. But so yeah, music blogging was my first taste of it. Had a bunch of internships in the film and TV space. I interned at Atlantic Records and I was in their video department. So I was cooking up sizzle reels and, you know, teasers for like Galantis and Flo Rida and Panic at the Disco. And honestly, really good time. Really enjoyed it. But it wasn't until my final semester of college that I interned at Disruptor. And that was when the joint venture at Sony had just formed. And that's headed up by Adam Alpert. And they had the Chainsmokers. And this was right after they released Selfie, but it was before Roses. So no one sort of knew what was going to happen there. But I treated the internship like a full-time job. I mean, first one in, last to leave. Asking as many questions as possible. And while I was hoping to get a job there, timing just simply didn't work out. So sort of like right place, wrong time. They then introduced me to the folks over at Billboard. And they didn't have a full-time position open, but they had an internship available. And it was just a social media intern. And so worked with them. And I want to say it was honestly like a week into that internship where I was doing like the Facebook, the Twitter, Instagram, etc. But I felt I had a good grasp of the voice that Billboard wanted to present. I went to my supervisor and I was like, hey, like, would it be okay if I do some stuff for Billboard Dance? Saw that they're like just starting up. I would love to like write some articles if possible. And she was super sweet in saying, you know, as long as it doesn't negatively impede on your social media duties here, like do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And took that to heart, started doing a bunch of different articles and was there for 3 months. Then they gave me an internship extension. So I was there for a total of 6 months. And I mean, dude, I'm doing literally everything from social media, writing the articles, getting the exclusives. The head of artist relations had left for a different company. So I'm hitting up different people because I just wanted to show the company that I can bring them value.
Yeah.
And I didn't know everyone in the world, in the world of music, but I knew at least one like junior booking agent, or at least an assistant or coordinator at every major booking agency. And I had the Billboard email, and it was a full-time internship. So I had already graduated from college. People are asking me like, wow, like Billboard, that's amazing. You work there full time? And I said Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, because that's how long I was committed there for. So the email did not say David Rishty at I'mABillboardIntern.com. It was just at billboard.com. So on my signature, I didn't throw that in there either. I wanted people to take me seriously. And emails were very short, sweet, professional. And I was able to bring in folks from Carly Rae Jepsen to Brandy to Shaq. And then everyone's looking around being like, who the hell is this intern bringing in Shaq? Sort of same thing though, right place, wrong time. There just simply wasn't an opportunity there at that moment. So ended up working at This Song Is Sick as a contractor. And then about a year later, my boss at Billboard Dance, he was like, I've been pitching you to the higher ups, like, you're going to get a job, you're going to get a job. And we had been having that conversation for months at this point. So when he called me about it again, I'm like, all right, like, I really don't appreciate it. It's like boy who cried wolf.
Keep teasing me over here.
But then lo and behold, like Monday, get a call, get an email, HR, here's the job, here's the title, when can you start? And I'm like, can I do it tomorrow? Like, and I was at Billboard for 2.5 years, and now I've been at Palm Tree Records for 4.5 years.
And I think there's a really important addition to that equation: right place, wrong time, right mindset. Yeah. Right work ethic.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about being the first one in, the last one gone, adding value, you know, making yourself indisposable.
Right.
Right. I worked at Capitol Records for 3 years. I hired a lot of interns. 90% of them, they come and they just do what they're told. Go get the coffee, make the copies, you know, like do the basic shit. They're just kind of happy to be there. Every now and then someone comes along and they're like, yo, I'm fucking hungry and I want a job and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to create a lane for myself and to add value. So that's what I call the headliner mindset right there, bro. You came in and were like, you know, you meant business. And that's really, really, really important. You know, last week I just had Paul Campbell on, a manager and a promoter out of Miami. And, you know, he was just talking about how like, yo, that's what's cool about this business is hard work. Well, it doesn't matter what your degree is, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter who you know, but if you're willing to work your ass off, you can make it in this business. And it sounds like you really had that work ethic that's required for anybody to succeed in any position in this business.
Yeah. I mean, I felt very guilty when I sort of told myself that I wanted to switch careers from being in film and television to like being in the music business, and knowing that I really needed to start from scratch with zero connections whatsoever. When I graduated from college, I actually did have a job lined up. It was a semi-strange job, but I was doing like social media and blogging for a small radio promotion company up in West Harlem. And the total company size, I believe, was 4 people, including myself. But it was a full-time job, so my parents were very happy. And I was there for 3 months. And then when this internship opportunity came about at Billboard, I was like, it's definitely a lot less money. It's internship money, but I know Billboard. My parents know Billboard. Like, I feel like I can grow faster. And at this
Mm-hmm.
point, my sole focus was growth. If I need to sacrifice whatever it needs to be, like, I'll do it. And I really need to commit to this process.
Ooh.
And so when I took that internship, I mean, my parents were quite upset. They're like,
Yeah.
my son, like, he doesn't have a real job. He just has an
Yeah.
internship. And then the kiss of death is when I interned there for 6 months, gave them my heart and soul. And they're like, we don't have a job for you.
Uh-huh.
And some of it was also just like proving to my parents, like, no, like, I can do this. Like, what you guys have instilled in me is this work ethic, this relentless
Yeah.
nature and hustle to just keep pounding the pavement until you get there. And I was so glad that when Billboard finally called, offering me a position, because it's like, it's not like the money was necessarily sexy, but I'm like, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, I'm going to bet on myself. And so, like, hopefully things will turn out fine.
That's exactly it, man. You bet on yourself. And you also said sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? Like sacrificing the good to get the great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's so many amazing lessons in your story, bro. And it's so true. I think it just is the nature of the music business where you have to believe in yourself wholeheartedly. You have to bet on yourself. You have to make sacrifices. And also, you have to oftentimes not listen to other people, like parents that are like, oh, no, take the money, take the safe route, take the safe job. And, I know for a fact, because I talk to them every day, all y'all listening, you know who you are, people that are, that have that burning desire to really be an artist. And they're like, yo, I want to be touring the fucking world. I want to be making my music, developing my fan base. And a lot of times that safety, that comfort, and that security gets dangled in your face. And it's like, oh, well, I could just, produce for other people, or I could just do mixing and mastering. Like, I'm still in the studio. I could still like work adjacent to what I'm really doing, but you got to be fucking honest. Like, is that really what you want to be doing? Right? Like, did you really want to be working for that small little 4-person company, or did you want to be doing like big boy shit, working at Billboard and really being in a bigger part of the industry? And the only way you can get that is to let go and to sacrifice and take that leap of faith and bet on yourself and just fucking trust that it's going to work out. But I truly think it's actually that boldness and that belief in yourself, that energy that you carry with you, like that's what actually creates the opportunity. Anytime you're playing it safe, you're living in safe energy, right? You're living in like a smaller version of yourself, and that smaller version of yourself isn't going to create the opportunities that you want.
Yeah. It's honestly like a conversation that I've had with myself quite recently. I'm 30 years old, and on a personal level, just like growing up and the fact that it's like a lot of my friends are getting engaged, getting married, having kids, and real life starts to set in a lot more and becomes just a lot more apparent and just like visual with your surroundings. And suddenly you feel you have a lot to lose. Cause it's like you've built yourself up to this point with a mindset of, I got nothing to lose. I got to go as hard as possible. But then you start to feel this societal weight that you essentially put onto yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But then it could sort of dictate your mindset. It could dictate your confidence, your belief in yourself. I'm a big fan of the movie Rocky and the whole Rocky franchise. And I believe it's in Rocky 3 where he's on the beach with Adrian and he's just not in the right headspace. And she's like, what's going on? What's going on? And he screams out, he's like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. And she's like, she calms him down, but she's like, you got to at least try and know that, like, even if the worst situation happens and unravels into itself, like, you did everything that you could in your power to like put yourself in the best position. At least you can take pride in that. But to let fear dictate your mindset and your decisions, like, you're just giving up.
Yeah.
That's not the whole point of life here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I find it interesting that you called it real life. Like real life starts to kind of present itself. And I get it, bro. I'm 38.
yeah,
I know that age. Everybody's getting married. All the homies from college have their careers, their 9-to-5s. They're climbing the corporate ladder. They're starting to buy houses, all that shit. And it's like, what is real life, right? We are all the creators of our own reality. And that certainly is one version of life that we are very societally programmed to think is normal or expected or, like what we should be doing. And
yeah,
when we're not, we can rub up against some cognitive dissonance there, right? But as they say, it's like comparison is the thief of all joy. And that's one of the most important things for artists, right? Is to really choose like, well, what's the path that I am creating for myself, right? And if I am going to compare myself, who am I comparing myself to, right? Let me look at the other people that really have what it is that I want, right? Maybe I do want that family and I do want that, but I also want to have the label job or the artist path. And a lot of times we believe, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I think this is a big inner conflict that a lot of us have is like, oh, if I take this path of working in the music business or being an artist, then that means I have to sacrifice having a relationship, having a family, having some of these other things. And that can be your reality if that's what you choose. But if you do want those things, well, then just look at the other people that actually have those things, right? Because there's plenty of, guys and girls out there that are married and they do have kids and they're still doing it. They're still in the industry, So yeah, we got to watch out for that little, that little comparison trap and that all the social programming, the parental programming, the religious programming, not that any of it's bad, but we just have to recognize that it is programming, right? So what is the programming that's actually going to best serve us to truly be the best versions of ourselves, achieve the things that we want, and be the most fulfilled in the process? Because sometimes that programming doesn't actually really serve us.
yeah. No, there was a period of time where even on Instagram, like the majority of the people in the music industry, I just muted them because I could not stand seeing their success. I got very jealous. I got very insecure. I started questioning my own success and making my own wins smaller. And once again, wasn't honestly until like the last like 6 months where I started to just like reprogram my mind of like how I view that stuff and how, partially like someone could be sharing a win, but like I have no idea what's going on in their life. Like they're sharing this one great thing that I may be like very envious of, but there could be a whole nother world that's a part of them that, I'm not so envious of. But I only, see one aspect of that. And so I like shared something on social media and one of my buddies responded. He's like, dude, like focus on the inputs and the outputs will come later. Like anything in terms of like radio success, charting success, getting on certain playlists. Like you can't control a lot of these things, but like you can control the storytelling, how a brand is perceived, the quality of the music, the relationships that you create, the relationships that you build, and I think you'll find a lot more peace. Yeah. You just focus on those inputs. And I thought that was great advice.
As a coach, as a, life coach, business coach, of course, goal setting is a really big part of the process, but there's two types of goals you can set. There's the results goal. I want to have the Grammy or the gold record or the house or the relationship or whatever. And those are nice. Let's set those, but really 90% of our focus needs to be on what's my process goals? Like how am I just showing up every day? What do I actually have control over on a day-to-day basis? Right. And when we, like you said, that's the input. Where am I putting my time and my energy? And I think one of the most important things is, we should also have a goal to be happy and to be fulfilled. I love this quote that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Yeah.
A lot of people have those things. They have all those results goals that we want. It's like, okay, cool. But you know what? You just sacrificed your life and your marriage and your relationships. And like, are you really happy though? Are you actually really fulfilled?
Happiness is underrated.
Yeah, man. We gotta enjoy the fucking ride. And that's where I come back to celebrating the wins all along the way, celebrating the process. You get to brag. You get to be proud. As I'm looking at your resume, you're only 30 years old. bro, you're a fucking young buck, dude, and you are the president of a record label. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that's pretty sick. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah.
So, I want to know. I saw on your LinkedIn, you started off as a product manager at Palm Tree, and now you're the fucking president. And that, I
Quite
don't
the
think
jump,
that was
yeah.
I don't think that was that long ago that you went from product manager to president. I want to know, how did you make that jump? What was it about you that had you go from, just managing probably a small piece of it to now like actually really running the whole thing over there?
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to join Palm Tree Records in the first place was I liked the fact that it was a joint venture. So I knew it was going to be a small team environment. But because of that, you sort of wear 10 different hats at once. And having not had much experience on the label side, I wanted to learn a little bit about everything. Whereas if you join a major label and let's say you do digital marketing, they want you to become a master at that craft. You want to learn about radio and A&R, maybe another day. Right now, let's get the digital marketing done. So I really just try to absorb as much information as possible, but like similar to the way that I approach these internships, like anything and everything that I could do to simply drive value to the label, I will do. Like I don't view it as a 9 to 5. It's much more of a lifestyle, as is most of these jobs in the music space. But I was doing a little bit of everything. Like as a product manager, I'm supposed to act as the liaison between the artists and all the different counterparts over at Sony, whether it's the creative team, legal team, release planning team, etc. But beyond that, I've been doing artist management for about 11 years. So I have a lot of experience in the touring space and the A&R space and the radio space and just having built up all these different relationships. So I was sort of just doing as many different responsibilities as possible to show the team, like, listen, like, I'm here to play. Like, I put in good work, you can trust me. I think I'm a good representation of the Palm Tree brand. And it was sort of one of those like preparation meets opportunity moments where the position came about and I had received a call from Miles and he's like, I see the work that you're putting in. I trust you. I think you do good work. I think you're a good look for the brand. The reins are yours if you want them. And in that moment, I was relieved and terrified at the same time because this all happened around the pandemic. And so layoffs, people being furloughed, job security was definitely something that was top of mind. And there had been a joint venture at Sony Music that got cut. And I'm like, all right, well, our contract is coming up too. Like they may want to do the same thing. So I had to, once again, just like figure things out, like how to put together a financial model to then create a proposal for a 3-year renewal and, extrapolate all this existing data that we had, put in some estimated predictions for the future to show Sony, like, this is my vision. This is the path. Let's just keep it going. And so I felt I was very fortunate to be given that opportunity to run the label. But at the same time, it's just like, I had an idea of what it was going to be like. And then you're actually in it and you're like, whoa, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a step back. Like this is intense. And it's less of contributing ideas. And it's more like you're the decision maker. Like if you say yes, it's a yes. If you say no, like it doesn't happen. And so that power, that authority, on one end, I guess is like cool. But at the same time, I'm just like, all right, I'm close to the sun, meaning I can get burnt at any moment. So it's definitely a responsibility I didn't take lightly. And the last thing I'll say about that was, as soon as it happened, I quickly reminded myself, like, being called president, like, it's a title, it's vanity. It doesn't mean anything. What I do with that title is what it actually is. So I was like, now it's go time to really show people the impact that I can make, because now it's going to be much more exposed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear how it is a lot of responsibility and probably, a little bit of pressure as well, right?
Yeah.
Steering the ship. How do you stay grounded amidst all of that?
My friends and family, for sure. I think just like making sure I'm being conscious of who I surround myself with, making sure that I constantly feel like I'm in a safe place, surrounded by good energy. And if I need people to lean on, I have those people around me. Um, it's funny, when I was at Billboard, everyone wanted to be my best friend, and rightfully so. Like, you want an article, you want to become best friends with that writer.
Yeah.
And as soon as I switched over to Sony Music, half the people that were like hitting me up every single day, gone. And
Yeah.
that's okay, because that was expected. But it
Yeah.
made me be a little bit more aware of, particularly in the music space, like, who are the people that I trust? Who
Mm.
are my ride or dies? Who are the people in the music space that I want to also continue investing in and making connections for them and setting up introductions and helping them grow as well? So yeah, I think a lot of it is about just the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. That thought was literally on my mind this morning. You know, every now and then I get these downloads of ideas and I'm like, oh, I should make like a Instagram reel about this. I want to put this message out. And this is exactly what I was thinking about this morning. And I'll formulate it into a reel at some point. But for now, you know, it's really looking at exactly as you said, like, who are the real ride or dies? Because a lot of the nature of the music business is very transactional, right? It is like, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? We're going to do some sort of business together. And let's like, yeah, you're friends and you have a relationship on the surface, you know, but how deep does that relationship actually go? And how many relationships do you have that actually are really, truly, truly deep? You know, it's an interesting ocean to navigate, but I think my message in all of that is exactly that, to like look for those people that you really can trust and that you want to have a deeper relationship with, and like build those bridges, invest in those relationships, you know, because that's what's gonna, one, not only make oftentimes the business better, but just like, again, back to that fulfillment piece, it's gonna make the whole journey better, you know.
I think it's important to make sure that you set the tone with people. And what I mean by that is, like, I'll occasionally host these like industry dinners in New York, and I'll bring people from all walks of life. I'll bring folks from Spotify and SiriusXM and Amazon and Netflix, and bring this podcaster on board and have all these people meet, because I don't want it to be a transactional relationship where it's like, hey, Spotify, playlist my stuff. You don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy that. That's not fulfilling. Like, ideally, we're all doing this for many, many, many years to come. I don't want this to be transactional type of exchange. So the purpose of these dinners is to be like, hey, like, I like you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the company. Like, I like you.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, I want to make sure that you can look to me as a friend you can trust. And I want to set up, you know, different introductions, whatever it may be the glue for your relationships with other people in the music space. Just because there's so far and few between these types of people that you really resonate with and are sort of just of the same mindset. Like, for example, I'm really grateful for my friendship with Rita, who works over at SiriusXM. And I'm sure she has a bunch of people hitting her up like, hey, program myself, blah, blah, blah. And she works in the dance space as well. So like, we do some work together, but I'm never going to force my friendship on her in a way where it's like, I need you to program this for me. Like, if she says it doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit, you know? But more than anything, I'm just grateful for the friendship that we have. And just like on a personal level, just being able to exchange stories with one another, or just like vent to each other. Like, it's rare. And so it's definitely something I don't take for granted.
And isn't that why we all want to work in music anyways, is so that we can have fun and enjoy it? And it's like, you have fun and enjoy it because you're working with your friends, you know?
Yeah, it should be a good time.
It should be a good time, right? And it's like, you also are always going to want to help your friends more than anybody. So even when it comes to business, it's like, yeah, if you're my homie, like I'll bend over backwards to help you out however I can. And at the same time, to have a really good friendship, you also can't really prioritize it with the business. It's like that friendship has to come first too, right? So it's almost like a paradox, you know. But it's important. I hope we're just, you know, planting some seeds for people to think about. You know, it is a relationship driven business, but put the relationship at the forefront. You know,
it's a marathon. Like you have to have the long-term mindset.
Yeah.
Even if you were aggressive out of the gate and you got that playlist that you begged for, was it worth it?
Yeah.
You know, like, so I don't know. My dad's always been like slow and steady wins the race, and that's just how I go about it.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go out to see Gareth Emery is in town tonight, and it's funny, talk about synchronicity again. I hit up his manager. I was like, yo, so you guys are coming to town, would love to see you. And they're like, yeah, come out. I used to work with Gareth a little bit back in the day also. Cool. And then on Facebook today, there was a Facebook memory that popped up, and it was like 9 years ago, Winter Music Conference, and it was like me and the manager, me and the girl. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a 9-year deep relationship. You know?
It's cool.
And it was just like one of those things, you know, it was just kind of cool to see. It's like, oh yeah, we get to reconnect, you know, when our paths intersect, and just knowing that, like, yeah, like if you're in this, like be in this, you know, if you're all in and this, you want this to be your career, like, cool, there is no rush, you know, plant those seeds, be genuine. A lot of these relationships are going to be 10, 15, 20-year relationships. And so, you know, treat them wisely. Yeah. What's up, you guys? This is Nick, and if you're looking to develop some of those deeper relationships, if you are tired of going on this artist journey all alone, and you are ready to get some support and find your peers and a tribe and other artists to build this dream with, I just so happen to have the perfect opportunity for you, because on May 13th, in 2 weeks, we are launching the next round of the Headliner Mindset Coaching Group. This is an 8-week program that I put together to walk people through the process that I use to help my clients take their music and their career to the next level. From getting your mindset and energy dialed in, to breaking through creative blocks and having better sessions in the studio, and ultimately really discovering who you are as an artist and figuring out what you are bringing to the world that is unique and fresh and different through your brand and through your music. This includes weekly video lessons and exercises, and not one, but 2 different group coaching calls that we have every single week, and also monthly guest Q&As that we do with my artists and industry friends, as well as a private Discord. But the best part is this really is a community, so once you go through those 8 weeks, you are still a part of this family. You still have access to one of those weekly group coaching calls. You still have access to the monthly Q&A. You're still a part of the private Discord, which honestly has been one of my favorite parts about this whole thing. Every day, people are sharing wins and sharing memes and giving feedback to each other on their music, and just generally hyping each other up and supporting each other. Like, it really has become a tight-knit family, and I love that. You know, I am right now keeping this relatively intimate. I'm only taking on 10 people at a time because it loses some of its magic. I've been in a lot of different group coaching programs, and once they get too big, it can lose some of that magic. So I already have 4 people signed up for this next round. I only have 6 spots left. I know they're going to go pretty quickly once I start promoting. So if you're interested, shoot me a DM. I'd love to tell you more about it. I'd love to have you be involved. It really is something special. So super excited for this next round. I hope to see you in there. Well, I love that we're halfway through the podcast, and we actually haven't really talked about the actual, you know, label strategy. I want to dig into that because I feel like you have so much that you can offer to artists that are trying to build their careers. Maybe they're self-releasing music. Let's start there, really, like on the label side. One question I always like to ask with labels is, like, how do you get signed? What are you guys looking for when you sign an act? Because every label is usually different. I feel like they're oftentimes kind of looking for different things and looking at different things. But at Palm Tree, what do you guys take into consideration when you are looking at signing an act or signing a song?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like labels are looking at acts more differently than ever. Really just with the advancement of technology and different software that, you know, easily accessible at a monthly subscription. A lot of labels are very data driven, very tech driven, and they could get to their artists that they like quicker. We've definitely taken a more traditional route while trying to keep in mind the metrics. But at the same time, I think it's always going to come down to the music. And then secondly, I usually just check out their Instagram page, get a vibe for the personality. And if the vibe check is right, I reach out. I'm honestly less concerned about the numbers because I sort of feel like that's my job. Like I'm the one who can help create that industry awareness, make sure that your project is simply on the radar of all these different personnel. And I think a great case study of this was Forrester. When we signed them, I think they had less than a dozen songs out, and I think it was like less than 100,000 monthly listeners. I don't know how many Instagram followers they even had, but what I saw, I thought was really cool. And we've ended up releasing 3 albums with them on Palm Tree Records, which I'm super proud about for a variety of reasons. One, they're from the dance space, and I don't feel like the dance space naturally lends itself towards storytelling and albums. So the fact that that's something that they were interested in, there was an immediate synergy. I also just think like it's also once again, like very fulfilling when you're able to build something from the ground up or as close to the ground up as possible, just because that relationship is more unique, more special, and you've seen the arc. And you fast forward to now, they've released a total of 4 albums. They're on a headline tour. They're selling thousands of tickets. They're playing the Fonda Theater in June in LA. They're playing Irving Plaza out here in New York in April, and they're selling thousands of dollars worth of merch. So it's not even just an act that streams well, does well on radio. Like they have diehard fans who are, investing their Friday and Saturday night to seeing them perform live, getting the hoodie, matching it with the hat. Real career artists. I've never been all that TikTok savvy, if I'm being completely honest. It's definitely a model that works, at least in the short term for sure. But I feel, I don't know, our bread and butter has always been artist development. And we've always had a model or like, I guess, a formula that we've gone by with each of our artists. And it's really coming down to storytelling, making sure that the artist knows what their own story is so that we can share that with the fans. And sometimes that does require some soul searching and figuring out like beyond the music, beyond the cohesive artwork, like music is simply just the platform. But with that platform, what are you going to say? And a lot of these artists, they don't know what to say. So having them dig deep, being in the trenches with them during that process, guiding them, that's a key component. I would say, secondly, like I said before, building industry awareness. I'm not telling people, hey, you need to support this. What I am doing is saying, hey, these people exist. And I think they would work well in your space. Just know about it. If you want to follow it, great. I just want to let you know they exist. I'm very passionate about them. And I think you'll be passionate about them as well. And that's across DSPs, radio, influencers, other creators. And then lastly, and equally as important is finding those artist cosigns. At the end of the day, it's got to come back to the culture. It's got to come back to the street credibility. If you're loved by Spotify, but the artists in your space don't really respect you or put you on or play you out, it's going to be noticeable at a certain point as the project scales. So as you're scaling it, making sure that the project is as dense as possible, making sure that there is as much depth as possible, I feel like that allows for longevity.
And what do you mean by depth?
Going back to the whole like soul search and digging deep, the storytelling part. So any single time we sign an artist, I send them a branding questionnaire, and it really touches upon all the different senses. So it's just like, who's one of your favorite artists?
Mine? Avicii has always been my number one. Yeah.
So I would ask Avicii, what does Avicii look like, smell like, taste like, feel like? And some of these questions sound strange, but it helps you have a much more concrete idea of what you're trying to get out to the world. So in terms of smell, is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it pungent? Is it citrusy? In terms of feel, is it soft? Is it hard? Is it jagged? Is it cool to the touch? This helps inform a lot of creative marketing decisions. So there was this one artist, Jywel, who years ago, he was putting out artist merch, but it wasn't a hoodie. It wasn't a hat. It wasn't a t-shirt or a flag. It was a pillow. And I was obsessed with that because you have to think about what is the ideal way you want your fan to experience your music. And for Jywel, it was much more soft, warm, cozy, safe. You just want to snuggle up with the music. And the fact that he was selling a pillow, I thought, one, it's just different. But I thought it was really smart in how intentional something like that was.
Wow. Incredible. And this is the stuff that I feel like a lot of artists miss.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, oh, I made a track and now I'm going to put it out there and hopefully people listen to it. I'm going to shove it down their throat. And it's like when you really see these artists that are truly thriving and reaching a really wide audience, more likely than not, they've really sat down and thought about these deeper questions, right? Like what kind of impact do I want to have? How do I really want to present myself? What's my deeper reason for being here? That deeper story, you know? So,
like Beyonce is not pop music. She's not R&B. She's not hip hop. Beyonce is about female empowerment.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's invigorating. You feel invincible. Sort of the way like Coca-Cola. It's not a soda. It's about bringing people together, communities together from all over the world. Like they're never promoting, oh, it's like a really good flavor, great taste. It's just like, no, like father-son moment, you know, coming home, you see the family, you have a Coke. And I think making sure that the branding is so strong in that way, showing that there's, once again, depth to the project, I think it becomes a much more sticky project. And I think it has just longer legs.
Yeah. And, you know, as I was looking at Palm Tree and just seeing the brand, and same thing, you know, even with Kygo as well, it seems so clear, like, who the market is, you know, like even just looking at a lot of like the content and stuff, it seems like you guys have a really clear idea about who the actual audience is. And I think that's also something that a lot of artists don't really think about. You know, I work with a branding agency on the side as well. You might have maybe actually been around the Cult Creatives. We did some stuff with Kygo and some golf. I think it was like a Puma golf campaign that we helped out with. But that's one of the questions that we ask, you know, the clients is like, well, who's your audience? Who's your target market? You know, and it is a very businessy question, but have you actually thought about that? You know, and most artists are just like, well, I'm gonna just make some shit, put it out there, and the right people will find it, you know. But when you actually have some strategy to it, it's like when I look at Palm Tree and I look at Kygo and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys know exactly who the fuck they're going after. Like there is a very particular sort of segment within, you know, out of all of the EDM fans and all of the music fans out there, there's a very clear idea of like, this is who we're going after, you know. It's like even looking at like the fashion, there's like, you know, polos and shorts and golf culture and palm trees. It's like, okay, I'm getting a vibe. Like you said, you know, there's a vibe check, right? Like, well, what's the vibe of your audience, and do you actually really understand who your people are?
I think that's why the Palm Tree brand has just scaled as quickly as it has, just because out of the gate they were very intentional about growth and strategy. And the Palm Tree festivals, you know, even the destinations from the Hamptons to Cabo to Aspen, these are very specific markets that have specific demographics. And like, if you build it, they will come, and they have been coming, you know?
Yeah. No, that was exactly what made it click when I was like, these guys are throwing a party in the Hamptons. Even just hearing that, you're like, you automatically conjure up, there's a certain type of demographic, you know, they're not the rail riders that are going to like Lost Lands and banging their fucking head against the wall. You know, they're not the kids that are going to like underground LA techno parties, like you said, yeah, Cabo, the Hamptons, it's like more of a sort of, luxury kind of, demographic and brand and lifestyle. And it's like, cool, you know who your people are, figure that out. Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. Now, back to the artist Forrester that you were talking about. Something that I've heard a lot of artists question, and I've had many of these conversations, is, should I just put out singles or should I put out an album? And I've heard really big artists that have put out albums and then afterwards actually regretted it, where they were like, damn, like we put all this work into building this album, but we feel like it just kind of cannibalized itself and only half of it really got listened to, if we had just put these out as singles. There's obviously no one right or wrong way, but I think that there are certain artists that want to be album artists.
Yeah.
But like you said, our culture and our scene isn't really, really big on storytelling and isn't really big on putting out albums. So I'm curious about what was it about that act that like you've been able to actually put out albums with, because it is different and it is rare, comparing it to the sort of traditional like EDM singles driven market, right?
Yeah. I think when putting out, whether it's a single, an EP, an album, that's an artistic choice. They need to feel like it's the right thing to do. And then my job is to support it and, bring that to fruition to the highest degree. When we put out their first album, it definitely did better than our expectations. That being said, there were a few album tracks that initially did not get love. It didn't get a certain playlist. Whereas if we serviced it as a single, we probably had a higher likelihood of getting that type of support. That being said, I'm also a big believer in if you build it, they will come. And we noticed that a lot of their streams on that album that we first did with them, we had higher streams in year 2 than we had in year 1. So even there's always going to be an obsessiveness over week 1, day 1 support, and it could, fall off after that. Like, ideally, we're growing a fan base here. We're building an audience that's going to be here for the long run. So as your audience scales, like, ideally, they're going back to the OG stuff too. And we noticed that with Forrester. And I think there's a way you could do it from like a strategic standpoint, whether it's doing like waterfall release strategy or making sure like, okay, there's a good chance this isn't going to get editorial support because it's not the focus track on the album. That being said, I feel like this song best fits this radio station. Let's make the goal for this song to be on this radio station. Let's use this song to be the teaser for the tour announcement, and hopefully we get some off-platform social media activity going there. So if the focus track doesn't end up being that hit, ideally we have some off-platform data that we can then share with the DSPs, and then they start supporting this other song. And that happened with their latest release. We had a focus track and it got playlisting, but we saw one of their album tracks just simply outperforming from an organic standpoint. And so my job as the label is simply communicating that data to the DSPs, to radio. And what do you know? We started getting new support. I think a lot of it just comes down to making these people aware of what's going on, because tens of thousands of tracks are coming into their inbox on a weekly basis. So it's part of my job to let people know, like, hey, something's going on. You should be aware about it.
Yeah, and I love that piece about how the previous album started getting more plays. Like, you have content, you have music that you're really giving to your fan base. And as more people discover you, they're going to go back into your catalog.
Yeah.
So for them to go back and not just see like, oh, you have like a couple singles out, they'll be like, yo, they have a whole album. And now I'm discovering this past album or these past 2 albums. I think that's something really special, because it's almost like it makes it more about what you're giving to the fans, rather than like what you're getting out of your marketing strategy and all that side of it, So that's it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see that, and I think exactly like you said as well. You're the artist at the end of the day, and as much as the label is always going to probably know the best strategy and how to market things, is like, I think the artist has to come first. Your creative decisions, your creative impulse has to come first. If an album wants to be born through you, it is your job as an artist to obey that calling and create that album, right?
100%.
And then once your art is made, okay, now let's figure out how to get it out to the world. Oftentimes we really have it backwards though, right? How do we get it out to the world? What do I need to create to implement the best marketing strategy? And it's like, no. Create the thing first and then figure out how to market it.
Yeah, I think every label has a responsibility to be a megaphone for the artist. Like when I reach out to an artist that I'm looking to sign, I'm very clear with them. I'm like, I like what you're doing. I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to change that up. I don't want you to be making music thinking like, oh, is Dave going to like this? As soon as you get into that headspace, like we're all screwed. You got to make music for you. This is your art. This is your project. I'm honored that you're open to sharing that with me. But it's precious. So I take that responsibility very seriously, which is another thing. And I don't know if labels are as aware of this as they should be, but the reality is a label can have many, many artists, but an artist usually only has one label. And that's a major sign of trust that you need to put into someone with your own career. And I don't know. I don't take it lightly. I think that's a major decision for any artist to make. And I think it's part of the label's job to make sure that they earn that trust, earn that respect, protect that relationship, make sure that the artist feels like they're in a safe space where we create a dynamic of we and us as opposed to you versus me. Yeah. You hear too many horror stories of an artist being frustrated with that label. And a lot of it is just because there's a lack of communication. Maybe there's smoke and mirrors. Maybe people aren't being totally honest with each other. And that could be because both of the label and the artist, everyone needs to take accountability. But I think it's a precious relationship.
Yeah. It is a relationship. It is a marriage, a partnership, and ideally like you are approaching it from that perspective. A lot of times I think artists are in the mindset of, how is this label going to help me rather than how are we going to work together? How are we going to form a mutually beneficial partnership? Same thing. If you're getting into a relationship with a person, you really shouldn't be coming into it with like, hey, what can I get out of this person? Yeah. It should be like, how can we form a really great team together? How can I give to this person, right? Like we're on the same page. And I think so much of that also really does fall on the artist, back to this idea of just knowing who you are, knowing what your story is, knowing what your vision is. Obviously, you can team up with a label and they can help you with that, or teaming up with the right manager and kind of guide you in that. But also coming from a label background myself, I feel like I did see a lot of artists that would get signed that didn't necessarily have a really clear idea of like who they were and what their vision was. And the label would take a really big role in that and be like, okay, well, we're going to create you. Right. And sometimes it works, but more often than not, if like the label is doing too much of that work, then there's oftentimes going to be this disconnect and it isn't really authentic to the artist. They didn't really have that strong vision. At some point, it kind of catches up with them. Whereas on the other side of it, you have like a Lady Gaga that just comes in and she's like, yo, I know who the fuck I am. Right. I got a vision. I got ideas. Like, I need someone to get on my train and help me make this shit happen. I feel like that's always the best. It's like when the label is there to help execute on the vision, but when the artist really knows, like, this is my authentic creativity. This is my authentic vision. I know what my story is. I've done that, vision quest to get real clear on who I am. Like, that's where I've seen the most home runs.
No, definitely. And if that artist needs to do that soul searching and the partnership is already intact, making sure that you are leading them to the water where they need to come up with their own answers. Because as you said, if you start feeding answers to them and start putting it out, like, eventually it's just not going to make sense.
And it's fun, it's like I get to do a little bit of that with my coaching, it's like the nature of coaching is really just asking questions. I'm like, I don't have the answers. I'm going to ask you the questions to help you come up with your own answers, and that's a really fun process to get people to start thinking about these things that maybe they haven't really been thinking about. It's like, what are you all about? You know, what do
Yeah.
you stand for? What do you believe in? Like what
Yeah.
I like to say, like the music is just the soundtrack to the movie,
Hmm.
right? What's the whole movie about? What
Yeah,
are
that's
you all
nice. I
about,
like that.
right? What are you trying to say? You know, so that's cool, man. It seems like you guys are really doing that with your artists as well in terms of like proper artist development. You guys aren't just like putting out songs randomly hoping that shit sticks, but you guys are really investing in the actual story and career of the artists over there.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I think it's healthy for the industry, and
Yeah,
yeah, just happy to be a voice in that.
that's rad, man. Well, I love what you guys are doing. I really appreciate you reaching out and taking the time to hop on
Yeah,
and
man.
share. I feel like we could probably do 3 more hours. I feel like we barely just scratched the surface, but maybe we'll do another. We'll do a round 2 down the road.
Love
But
it.
I really appreciate you reaching out. Thank you for contributing to the conversation and to the community. And yeah, you're the man.
Likewise. Appreciate you having me on.